Imagine a world where a mysterious fog engulfs the earth, the sky full of ash, casting a shadow over day and night for over a year and a half. This is exactly what most people would have experienced in the year 536 AD, dubbed by many as the worst time to be alive in history. During the summer of 536, the temperature dropped by around 2.5 degrees Celsius, making it the start of the coldest decade in over 2,000 years. Records from different regions, including the Byzantine Greeks, the Irish, and Chinese, all describe a similar grim picture of the year 536 AD. Many historians once considered these accounts to be exaggerations and unreliable, but recent scientific discoveries validated these ancient descriptions. The Byzantine historian Procopius, who lived during the time, described seeing the sun barely give forth any light, and he said it was shrouded in a thick fog which dimmed the world, making it seem as though the sun was in a constant state of eclipse. While Procopius was traveling in Sicily with the Byzantine general Belisarius, he noted the sun's dim and eerie light, resembling the moon and casting a perpetual twilight over the earth. Procopius wrote, quote, "For the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon during the whole year." End quote. During this time of darkness, humanity faced ongoing warfare, widespread pestilence, and other catastrophes. Irish Gaelic chronicles from the time speak of a failure of bread from the year 536 to 539, leading to widespread famine. There are also Chinese records from the Wei dynasty telling a similar story. They reported that a yellow dust rained down like snow, and they had a year without summer, devastating their harvests. The people writing about these events often didn't understand the cause, and they usually believed it was their god or gods punishing them and a sign of the impending apocalypse. The Roman statesman Cassiodorus also documented these unprecedented weather anomalies. He wrote, quote, "A winter without storms, a spring without mildness, and a summer without heat." End quote. Cassiodorus's observations were very similar to Procopius. They both noted how the dim sunlight led to peculiar weather patterns and agricultural failures. A few years later, in 541, a bubonic plague ravaged the Roman port city of Pelusium in Egypt. The plague spread like wildfire through the Eastern Roman Empire, eventually reaching the capital of Constantinople. Later, it became known as the Plague of Justinian, named after the emperor at the time who caught the disease himself. The plague wreaked havoc over the capital, Constantinople. Procopius documented the plague extensively, and he tells us that the symptoms began with fever, chills, vomiting, and bubonic swellings in the armpits and lower thighs. Some infected people would die straight away, while others would sink into a state of exhaustion, delirium, and paranoia, being unable to recognize family and friends. Black pustules about the size of lentils appeared on the victims. Procopius wrote that this was a sure sign of imminent death. And he also tells us that, quote, "This was a plague by which the whole human race came close to being annihilated." The cause of the plague was unknown, and there were no known treatments at the time to cure it. Pregnant women and young children were at the most risk of death. And there are reports that if an infected individual survived, they would be left with a permanent speech impediment, like a lisp or incoherent speech. Procopius also noted that if someone had the plague and survived, when they would then go on and treat other infected people, they were immune to the disease. The death toll of the plague was staggering. At the height of the epidemic, it killed around 5,000 people per day in Constantinople. Procopius tells us that the dead were too numerous to bury. The dead bodies were often stacked and piled in churches, and in the watchtowers of the city walls. And there were so many dead that they couldn't perform the necessary funeral rites and burials for everyone. And their Christian faith prevented them from burning the dead bodies. Procopius tells us that the entire city reeked of death. Procopius also tells us that Emperor Justinian responded poorly to the large loss of life. The emperor still demanded the annual tax from the farmers of his empire. And to make up for the money he wasn't receiving from the devastated farms, he demanded even more money from those who were still alive. The plague would eventually kill around 40% of Constantinople's population and eventually spread to every corner of the Eastern Roman Empire, having a profound impact on Roman society, causing the deaths of up to a quarter of the human population in the Eastern Mediterranean, which translates to around roughly 30 to 50 million people. In 2013, researchers confirmed that the cause of the plague of Justinian was Yersinia pestis, the same bacterium responsible for the Black Death in the Middle Ages. Scientists have also traced the climate change of 536 AD to massive volcanic eruptions, which likely released massive amounts of ash into the atmosphere, giving the appearance of dark skies, leading to a dramatic drop in temperature and a decrease in sunlight, severely impacting photosynthesis around the world, stunting the growth of plants and trees around the world. Scientists have compelling evidence for this by examining tree ring data from the time period. The studies revealed that tree rings traced back to roughly the year 536 AD show signs of environmental stress and remarkably little growth, supporting the historical accounts for widespread agricultural failure. Recent geological studies and ice core analyses have traced the source of the massive ash cloud to a volcanic eruption in Iceland. A larger eruption is believed to have occurred at the same time on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean in South America, the Ilopango volcano located in modern-day El Salvador. This eruption was probably the primary cause of the climate cooling which was experienced worldwide between 536 and 539 AD. The eruption of Ilopango was so colossal that it's considered the second largest volcanic eruption in the last 200,000 years. The event had a profound impact, instantly killing around 100,000 people and displacing 400,000 more, and filling the sky with dust and ash for over a year. This eruption is also directly linked with a period in Mayan history known as the Classic Period hiatus, where archaeologists can see a sudden halt in the construction of stone pillars by the Mayans. The Moche civilization, which existed in modern-day Peru, were also devastated by this eruption. They were an agricultural society and relied on their advanced irrigation systems to survive. But after the eruption, they experienced widespread famine and food shortages. Archaeological evidence also shows us that in the period following the eruption, there was an increase in ritual sacrifice by the Moche people, possibly in a desperate attempt to appease the god and restore the fertility of the land. These events would eventually lead to the collapse and disappearance of the Moche civilization in around 700 AD. The catastrophic events of the year 536 AD impacted civilizations across the globe, from the Byzantine Empire to the Moche civilization in Peru. These events highlight the interconnectedness of global calamities and the far-reaching effects of natural disasters in human history. If you found this exploration of the year 536 fascinating, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into some of history's most pivotal moments. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.